My name is Adib Saikali. I'm part of the Tanzu R&D team working on TAP, and I'll be the moderator for today's panel. We've got a bunch of questions that have been submitted prior to the conference today, and you can ask questions live in the Discord. We'll try to get to all of them in the time that we have. So I'll get us going here with the first question that we took from the pre-submitted questions, which is VMware Tanzu the same as Kubernetes? All the cloud providers have their native Kubernetes engines, and how does Tanzu application platform replace or complement the cloud provider native Kubernetes?
So I'll go ahead and take that first, Adib. VMware Tanzu is not the same as Kubernetes. VMware Tanzu is actually made up of a couple of different pieces. We have something called Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, which is a Tanzu is a Kubernetes distribution. So if you don't have a distribution of Kubernetes that you really trust, you enjoy how hardened and reliable it is, we have something that's really, really useful. We think it's high quality. But the rest of Tanzu doesn't assume that you run that Kubernetes. We assume that we run on all Kubernetes, basically. And so we have other things such as the Tanzu application platform that brings an application abstraction that includes a developer lifecycle, a developer workflow. And we build on top of Kubernetes as a delivery target in those cases. So we're here to sort of take what you have, meet you where you are with Kubernetes, including cloud native distributions, and add additional developer facing value on top of that.
Thanks, Ben. So I hope everybody got a proper answer for that one. So my next question is that I have here that's been submitted is, how is Tanzu application platform better or different than other platforms that are out there in comparison?
I can take that one, Adib. One of the things that, I guess one of my favorite quotes when talking with a customer about Tanzu application platform and just application platforms in general is, they love opinionated platforms as long as those opinions are theirs. So really what we get with Tanzu application platform is the ability to have a golden path and kind of like a guardrails for your path to production out of the box, but then it allows you to customize your developer experience, your path to production, and your security practices all to your needs. We know not every single organization is exactly the same, so we can meet them with their unique needs and their unique systems that they have as they're bringing their application to production. Additionally, we have a lot of our developer productivity tools like Enterprise Backstage, our app accelerators, and our IDE tools that really increase developer productivity. And we really see a lot of adoption in the market around kind of like bringing those best practices and those use cases to the developers so they can kind of like shift that security focus left and get it out of the box and make sure that they're actually using those patterns by default, and then actually bringing in consistent industry specific tooling that is kind of making it easier for developers' lives as they really focus on focusing on their business logic and bringing their application to production and realizing value for their company.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Scott. I think what I'm hearing here is that Tanzu application platform is something that works with the existing choices of Kubernetes that you have and kind of is designed to help you align with whatever processes you want to implement. It makes it so you can achieve your goals in a simple way. That's really what I'm hearing
Exactly.
from the panel here. Yeah. And that kind of
just
comes
to follow up.
Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, just to follow up on that a little. Specifically, it gives organizations the ability to do that, right? Rather than forcing that kind of burden on each and every one of the developers, it gives the organization a centralized place to say, here's how we're going to be productive in our company, right? And deliver that in the easiest possible way for the developers who are delivering business value every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Moving on to kind of the next questions here. That we got, which is how much is Tanzu meant to replace tools like kubectl or monitoring tools that you might be using, like a New Relic or Datadog or others, and how much is it meant to run alongside these tools? Like, i.e., do I have to throw out everything I have to use Tanzu application platform?
I can take that, Adib. So as we heard, Tanzu application platform provides an abstraction layer on top of Kubernetes. So developers do not have to deal with the Kubernetes platform level concern. Instead, they focus on writing their application code, while the platform takes care of all the aspects of deploying their apps on Kubernetes. There are command line interface, IDE extension, and GUI to interact with the Tanzu application platform. So developers do not need to run kubectl. However, Tanzu application platform is built on top of Kubernetes as a series of custom resources. So if wanted, someone can run kubectl on any of those custom resources as it is compliant with Kubernetes API. Regarding monitoring, the platform provides a lightweight troubleshooting experience via live inspection of running apps at real time. So developers can inspect the health of an app, such as CPU memory usage. They can take a heap dump, can view the thread status, change the log levels without restarting the app to get more logs, and so forth. In addition, VMware also offers observability tools, VMware ARIA operations that can work in conjunction with Tanzu application platform. However, we understand that customers often have already chosen monitoring or observability tool, and we do not expect them to throw those away. So they can continue to use those tools along with Tanzu application platform.
Yeah, thanks.
Extending beyond that a little bit, the entire philosophy of the platform itself is to give you a batteries included kind of experience. Say, out of the box, we want this to be functional for you. There are choices. And so if you want to replace those batteries, if you want to slot in a different scanner than our sort of default, if you want to slot in a different observability solution, and it goes on and on and on, almost every single critical integration that we ship out of the box is replaceable to meet you, the customer, where you are.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, Ben. We got a couple of questions from Discord. I want to throw at the team here. First one is does TAP support or will support WASM applications?
I'll definitely take this one. We talk about this a lot internally. Some people are really, really big advocates for WASM. It's definitely a thing that we look at very, very closely. We don't ship sort of out of the box immediate support for it, but there's nothing about the platform itself that means you couldn't use it, right? We use, sort of have a very clearly defined build step where we choose to use build packs and we sort of orient towards Java applications. I don't know, 15th SpringOne, 17th SpringOne, something like that. So I'm in the Java world. But you can write a build pack or you can write a Docker file that knows how to compile up some WASM and actually run them. I think as a longer term question, WASM is really, really interesting for us. What does it mean in a world where you don't have to actually have, sort of containers running in order to put WASM modules together in sort of a lightweight runtime? Nothing today, but it is something we're really interested in keeping an eye on.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ben. I'm a huge fan of WASM too. And twists my brain into knots, and it's like awesome stuff. Hope to see it soon. The next question from Discord is actually quite similar to the question that's had in the that was submitted earlier, which is, hey, if I'm using something like Google Cloud, can I achieve something similar to what the Azure Spring Apps allows me to do using Tanzu application platform?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I can take that. So one of the things with Google Cloud and the difference between TAP and ASAE is a lot of the outcomes we try to achieve in Tanzu application platform and ASA are similar. Like we're trying to increase developer productivity, we're trying to increase the actual kind of like security and provide a secure path to production. So while we say you can achieve the same outcomes, some of the underlying functionality of running something specifically in ASAE is not 100% the exact same technology and wired the same way as TAP in GCP, but you can actually achieve the exact same thing using several similar components. Like we both use build packs across the two, and we're using things like application accelerators, application live view, which were recently launched in ASAE. So you get a lot of the same components, and under the hood, actually, ASAE is Azure Kubernetes Service. So the concepts are similar of like abstracting away the complexity of Kubernetes to your developers and making it easier for them to write their applications. The one key thing that we want to add there with TAP is that it's much more intended for it to be fully polyglot for every single application. While Azure Spring Apps is Spring oriented, it is a polyglot support out of the box, but much more so in the TAP support is much more kind of like focused on kind of a pure polyglot platform.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Scott. That was a really good answer. I work on both Azure Spring Apps and Tanzu application platform, and I'm in love with both platforms. So there's a lot of like real goodness in both here. So the next question I think is pretty interesting, which is coming from Discord. It says, using TAP, do we still have access to lower level components of Kubernetes, and can we modify it?
I'll jump in, and I think Nivedita sort of answered this a little bit more, and she can follow up. One of the key things that we've been really careful about in the architecture of TAP is that we're not putting a huge amount of logic out of reach of customers. We use Kubernetes the way you'd expect it to be used, the way Borg is used inside of Google or something like that. What we want to do is use it as a platform for us to build our platform. We want to use the primitives it exposes, such as controllers and CRDs and CRs and things like that. On top of that, we eventually layer something else, right? We will layer sort of a REST API, or we'll layer a GUI or a IDE integration. But at any point, you can drop down. There are clearly defined contracts between the components, so you sort of need to be conformant with those if that's if that's a piece you're trying to replace. But we use it ourselves in many cases, right? Like we clearly are very build packs forward in Tanzu, but you can slot that out and you can slot in Conoco with a Docker file if you want to do that for your build. And a lot of the different pieces, as long as you can meet those contracts, you can do that just with normal Kubernetes primitives.
Yeah.
Nivedita, anything to add there?
I just want to add something just for that, because this is a Spring focused conference. The way I think about it is I think about it personally as Spring Boot auto configuration. You get something out of the box that works incredibly well. That's kind of like a lot of people would consider as the right way to do things. But if you have a need that is different, you can tell the auto configuration to step out of the way, and you can go ahead and kind of do things exactly the way you want it to be done. Anybody else from the panel want to add anything?
I think the idea here is to give the defaults and an abstraction for app developers so that they don't have to deal with the complexities, but the architecture is built in such a way that if you want to, you are not prevented from going to any level.
Excellent. One question that also came in before, like from the pre-submitted questions, was, hey, what if I'm using a containerized solution, but it's not Kubernetes? Maybe I'm using something like the AWS ECS service. Is there value that Tanzu application platform can bring in that situation?
So I'm going to lead this question to Nivedita for sure, because she is definitely the expert here. From our perspective, ECS being a containerized solution, like obviously we're really, really happy with Kubernetes as a whole. But if you wanted to go to something like ECS, again, we don't tie anything really natively in the platform. You're not going to get all of our goodies for runtime on top of Kubernetes, right? You're going to absolutely have to deal with ECS and the things that they provide for you, but it's our developer experience. And so I'll kick it over to Nivedita to talk a little bit more about like where we think the value in our developer experience is, like before you get to your sort of production runtime environments.
Yeah, for example, the central developer portal that we have that gives access to starter templates that we call accelerator, where organizations can build in all the best practices, encode all the compliance and conformity rule to build the code and path to production. and use those as bootstrap their application, which has nothing to do with Kubernetes, to be honest. It can benefit anyone building cloud native apps. Also, allowing this, again, from the central portal, discover the APIs that are available, the components that are available that can be reused, looking at the technical docs, all in one single place. That helps in collaboration and boost the developer productivity. In addition, the things like application live view that we were discussing, giving you, like real-time health information, all these does not necessarily have to be on Kubernetes. So there is a fair amount of benefit we can get out of that. In addition, the build pack also helps dealing with making sure the app is built with a good image and stay good, automatically updated. So all these can be leveraged and developers get benefit out of it.
Thanks, Nivedita. Yeah, I've personally had a lot of conversations with customers that were using containerized solutions that weren't Kubernetes, and as they walked through their various workflows, they could see a lot of the value that various parts of TAP can bring to it. And this is what I love about TAP, is the modularity of how you can pick and choose the pieces of it. Next question that came from Discord is there a way for us to use TAP with existing Kubernetes clusters that we've already deployed? And is it open source or available freely?
I can take that.
I'll take a stab here. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nivedita.
No, go ahead. What I was going to say,
I vote for Nivedita.
As Ben already mentioned, that TAP can run on any Kubernetes. So we're not attached to any specific Kubernetes. So if you have a Kubernetes cluster and it is compliant and conformant, TAP can run on it.
And the bit that I'll follow up with at the end there is we've made the Tanzu application platform and all of the Tanzu products generally free for evaluation. You can go and you can download them, understand how they work for you before you make a commercial commitment.
And many of the components inside of Tanzu application platform are based on CNCF open source projects. For example, we include Knative in there. There's Kpack, there's Cloud Native Build Packs, there's, when you look under the covers, you'll see that quite a lot of those components are actually open source. Great question. Next question that I have is, hey, where should I start with Tanzu application platform? How do I get going as a developer? What are the primary benefits that I'll get out of the platform if I go down that road?
I can take that one, Adib. So as we spoke, Tanzu application platform provides a rich developer experience for developing cloud-native apps on top of any Kubernetes. Centralized, as we are talking, a centralized developer portal is really key to unlocking developer productivity, because from a single place, developers have access to the starter templates that we call accelerator to bootstrap their application, and easy discovery for all the APIs and components that they can leverage for their apps and from a single place. A developer can start a new application using Accelerator right from their IDE, so they can get to writing the application logic right away. And at the same time, they are assured that their app is going to be built with all the standard best practices and that is recommended by the organization. Developers can deploy their app to any Kubernetes cluster, whether local or public cloud or on-premise, from their preferred IDE, and without having to build a container image or writing a series of YAML, because the platform takes care of build and deployment aspect. They can rapidly iterate on their code with a fast feedback loop, as the updated code is directly injected to the running container without the need to rebuild and redeploy the container. So that really makes the iteration loop very fast. So on the operator side, Platform also enables operators to create a golden path to production, ensuring security and compliance. Operators are able to deploy apps at on production at scale. Using a secure software supply chain, operators apply security policies, runtime best practices, so apps run in a predictable manner and without interfering with developers' development flow. And the platform is built in a modular way, so one can choose to start with the developer tools, or if the problem at hand is to build a golden path to production, they can start with secure software supply chain tooling. So there is choice as it is modular.
Thank you, Nivedita. We're at end of time here. I just want to thank the panel members, Ben, Scott, and Nivedita. I just want to kind of leave you with, hey, I'm a developer. I want to learn developer things. I want to learn how to use write Angular apps, which has been a to-do list forever. And I don't really want to spend my time, writing Docker files and Kubernetes YAML. And that's what I love about TAP is I can spend more of my time on learning things that let me write new business functionality and not so much time on infrastructure. Thanks everyone for your time today.